Good afternoon. Welcome to Walking Slowly Downhill, and welcome to a series of daily accounts I wrote as I walked the River Murray from its source on Mount Kosciuszko to its mouth in South Australia at Goolwa. This took place from September 2015 to January 2016, and each day after my walk I would write an account of the day's questions, conclusions, half-conclusions, feelings, and so on. This is an account of that journey, and it's titled Walking Slowly Downhill. This is from the introduction. On the new moon morning of Sunday, September 13, 2015, I began to walk slowly downhill from Mount Kosciuszko, acknowledged as the principal watershed of the Murray River. Over the next 14 weeks, I continued walking along various roads and tracks bordering the Victorian side of the Murray until I reached the river's mouth at Goolwa in South Australia on the new moon of 10 January 2016. This slow walk of 1,650 kilometres was undertaken with the permission of the elders of each of the indigenous nations that have inhabited Murray River country from source to mouth since time immemorial. As I walked, I observed the river's transmutation from initially inarticulate snow and ice body into the riverness of its expressive free-flowing water. Sometime later, I became aware of my own gradual transmutation from mindful beginner and stranger to an initiate. What is a stranger? To my mind, the stranger lives both an unbelonging and an unbelonged life, as one who is perennially unhinged from one's core. What is a mindful beginner? To my mind, a mindful beginner regards knowledge accrued through previous experiences as a distinct disadvantage, because knowing seeks only to confirm recognition of itself. The mindful beginner attempts to give complete attention to whatever flows from the now. And what is an initiate? The initiate is the one who attempts to acknowledge the environment he or she journeys through as it is, rather than experiencing it as a construct created from one's own projections. As I gradually increased my focus on the walk's unfolding environment as it was, I began to sing. At first a mumbling and humming sottovoce of all the songs I love, then a grateful and full breathing out of each note, from chest through throat into the space around and above the journey's path. Each evening I wrote an account of the day's passing in an attempt to describe my beginner's questions and articulate my initiate's responses. This was written in 2016, February, the introduction. I'll read a couple a day to you. Some are brief, some are longer, and the intention is to continue the sharing of stories, personal and philosophic and introspective and speculative, that constituted my previous readings. As this lockdown hasn't yet ended, I will continue with reading you stories, possibly until after it has. This is the first day from Mount Kosciuszko to Tom Groggin. Beginnings. I'm always interested in endings. The last story I read to my youngest child, the last time my father kissed me. But this is the beginning of a long journey, perhaps not in time, but in space, inner space. How do I find myself in it at the start? I look around. Snow. The cold white stuff that comes apart in my hands in crystal-shaped granules is machine-made. Its accumulated humps end abruptly where the machine could go no further. It hasn't fallen indiscriminately where it willed itself freely to do so, but lies in strangely melancholy patterns, being turned into squelchy grey mud by t-shirted people who've come from afar to transform the artificial whiteness into sun-drenched greyness. They do it so effectively without knowing, without thinking, without looking down. This not snow has no alchemical power. It's not what transmuted Kate Bush's soul through her obsession with snow's whiteness, nor is it the whiteness that fueled Herman Melville's compelling description of his strange horror of the albino whale. But beyond the skier's path, there is an immobile, pure silence. It still exists. I walk through it unseen, and I begin to climb down the mountain itself and away onto the road, eventually forming my first steps towards Top Groggin and eventually to Gulwa. What awaits me? Endless beginnings, each unfolding into its ending. If I can get beginning and ending to agree to a truce, even a temporary one, I might reconcile their essential nature enough so that they manage to exist in one single space. Then this step after step journey will perhaps make sense to me. Tomorrow I will continue with the account of the second day. These are of course fragments, and they're written in a very subjective response to the day's unfolding, and they're unedited, and they wander all over the place as a mind that's disordered from meeting such newness might well behave. But I will continue to read them to you in the hope that they can offer you something of my experience. Until tomorrow, welcome to Walking Slowly Downhill.